gentlemen, welcome to another edition of On Point. If it's Sunday, 4 o'clock, it's On Point. With me are the brilliant Liberians in our area that will be discussing issues affecting us, current event, seen from different angles. Obviously, we are in the political season. We call this the silly season of the year. We get 4 more months where we're going to be bringing to you the different players, major players, comic players on the political scene in Liberia. Do us a favor, please share this show. As you know, people in your network may not be people in my network. Please share this show. Our panelists, please do the same thing. Share the show with your guests. And let's get going. With me today, as usual, Mr. Aliu Kamara is here. And I can see he got his glasses on. He's ready to fire. He's ready. Always ready. And with me also is Mr. Elvis Morris. He's an independent voice. He calls it as he sees it from the state of 10,000 lakes. And with us today for the first time on Point, young man, welcome. I'll lift my cup up to you. We usually say, welcome here. Mr. Saki, you are new to the show, but everybody knows who you are. You have a PhD, so we'll be listening to you. But besides that, we are glad to have you here, Mr. Kamara.
Thank you.
How are you doing? I know you're in the nation's capital. Are you in the Baltimore area?
I'm doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me, Mr. Gilman.
Great. Mr. Elvis, if you could do your phone landscape, it would be good if you can do it. Landscape. No, not you, the phone. Just turn the phone. There you go. Elvis, let's go. Yeah, move your phone. There you go. We can see you loud and clear.
I would say my. All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to be on the show today. Are you getting me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, like I said, thanks for having me on. I'll just leave it there.
Great. Saki,
Or maybe I got
are you comfortable with me calling you by your first name? Or
Yeah, Saki is enough. Saki is enough.
Okay, doctor, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Well, Saki Golafale
Got it,
is my
Mr.
name,
Gatti.
and I will be here as an independent voice from the opposition side. When I say independent, it means that I'm an opposition to the current ruling government, but I'll provide my perspective on issues here. Thank you.
Excellent, 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 excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, we have several topics today we're going to be discussing. It also has to do with all politics, and it is around the Charlene Brun scheme, the CPP, the CDC. But today we're going to pay special attention to the Sermon on the Mount, I call it. Last week, we didn't have the time to discuss the sermon of Senator Prince White Johnson, where he stands on issue, why he stands on these issues. And then right after his sermon, there was a rebuttal or response from the CPP. We are going to be discussing that. We are also going to be discussing Jefferson Koijee last week. We didn't have time to discuss this, when he threatened those within the CDC that are holding high-ranking positions. And by means, he means that they are trying to undermine the government in which they work, a government that pays them. We have heard that there are unconfirmed report that our chief, the pro tem of the House, of the Senate, were also purchasing vehicles for the opposition and delivering them clandestinely. When they confronted him, they said, well, 30 pickup. He said, no, that's a lie. It wasn't 30, but I only purchased 7. So in politics, here we call it plausible deniability. I don't know whether that will fly when you say it's not 30. The objective here is not that you purchased 30 pickup, but that you did purchase pickup for the opposition. So Jefferson Koijee is saying we need to weed out these folks and get rid of them. And then number 3 on the list, we want to discuss politics as it is, the real politics. Quick announcement. Next Sunday, we are going to have 2 powerful folks on here. We are going to have Mr. Puka Roberts out of Monrovia, and we're going to have a very brilliant young man out of the Washington, D.C. area called Emmanuel Achampong. Emmanuel Achampong was a writer, editor, a brilliant writer out of Liberia. He's going to be on next Sunday to discuss issues that he has with this particular platform and our method of discussion. He admitted to me finally that he's coming from the CPP wing, so we'll be ready for him. Mr. Kamara, I don't know whether you were privy to the Prince Johnson sermon last week, the messages, the tone, the graphic nature of his sermon. If you did, if not, then we will begin with Mr. Elvis. If Mr. Elvis, if you saw anecdotal pieces of the sermon, we can go into that.
Mr. Gilman, I
Right,
watched
Mr. Kamara, I think you have the floor.
Go ahead, Mr. Kamara.
Okay. I watched the sermon of Senator Prince Johnson on the day in question, and he made statements that I wouldn't make personally. However, we're enjoying the Kamara freedom of speech.
Oh Lord.
Let people say what's on their mind. You see, when you throw yourself in the race, then you expect people to go after you. See, I have done some things in my life right now that I believe that I'm the only one who knows those things. But wait until the day I decide to become a representative or a senator. And you see how many people are going to go after me. Maybe even Gilman, my friend on here, might go after me then. So Prince Johnson doesn't talk about me. He doesn't talk about anybody on this platform. He's talking about a guy who has come out to claim to be the cleanest man in the race. However, he has been doing some very apprehensive things, decision making, and all that. But you got to understand the nitty-gritty here. Why did Prince Johnson make those statements? We got to understand the root cause. Was Mr. Prince Y. Johnson provoked? Did he speak out of some sort of mental anguish? Was his speech motivated by the act carried out by quote-unquote Joa Howard Taylor? Was his speech something that came from Ms. Councilor Gould in Buchanan when he referred to Prince Johnson as a violent criminal, and so on and so forth? So could this just be a retaliatory speech? I think we should look into that too. But as far as I'm concerned, I listened to him. I didn't worry about him. I didn't pay him much mind. It was just his opinion.
Great. Mr. Elvis Morris.
Yeah.
You know, we want to do some due diligence here. I know you listened to the speech or you listened to part of it, and one or two particular areas of the speech you have concern with. Talk to us.
Right. I want to say this, and just to kind of, before I even get into my statement, what Mr. Kamara said in terms of Prince Johnson being provoked, I think somebody of his stature in our society should be above provocation. You know, somebody of his level of importance within the body politics of our country should be beyond provocation. You know, that's what it said. You don't stoop down to the level. If somebody comes and try to incite you into maybe saying some things that is unseemly, you don't stoop that low. But now down to his sermon, what he said about Cummings, and I blame Cummings to a certain extent because we all watched that interview where Mama D. Diakite asked him about if he became president, if he would legalize, gay relationship or gay marriage in the country, something to that effect. And he said, well, this is a lifestyle that I struggle with myself. and he gave this long explanation. And then Diakite asked him, "Are you sure you answered that question the way you wanted to?" And he said yes, and he just left it at like that. So I think it's on him to come out and interpret the statement. If he wants to align or be an ally of the LGBT community in Liberia or in Africa, he can say that. If he wants to out himself as being somebody who is a bisexual, he can say that. But this has been a lingering thing amongst people who are, his detractors will say, oh, the man is gay. It's not fit to be president. He will be, sodomizing our young boys in the country. And Cummings has said nothing about this. But he made a public statement that left a lot of people wondering whether he's a part of that community, whether he's a sympathizer of the community. But he's not coming out to say anything regarding, whether or not he supports, the gay lifestyle or he's against it. And then Prince Johnson said something that I think was untoward. He said maybe since Charlene Bromstein is associating with Cummings, maybe maybe she's a lesbian. I mean, this fascination of Prince Johnson with people's sexual life, it's peculiar because as a man, I don't worry about what other man does. I have my woman, I have my family. I'm not worried about who else is doing what in their bedroom. So if Prince Johnson, who has a history of killing somebody who you perceive to be gay, into come say Roberts, what's his motive here? What is his motive of always trying to paint somebody as being a homosexual? Charlene Brumsky has a fiance. People say, oh, she's not married. She's in her late, mid to late 40s. She's not married yet. Why is she not married? Is there something else there besides, maybe she just didn't find the right person until this time. So Prince Johnson killed Tecumseh Robert because he was quote unquote gay. He's spewing rhetoric about somebody, allegedly being gay, casting, expression on somebody who there's no evidence of her ever being gay or lesbian, but saying that in his speech, to throw a monkey wrench in the political scene, so to speak. And my last thing I would say, I said on the platform before, Prince Johnson is a political mercenary. He will be on your side one day once you pay him that money to support, for his support. The moment somebody else pays him more money, he's going to come and try to attack and assassinate your character. He is known for this. So for me, Prince Johnson, what he says about Cummings, it holds some weight because of that interview. But when it comes to Charlene Bromstein, I don't see any evidence or any inclination that she was ever involved in anything like that. So I think he needs to clarify. If he's just saying it by based on her association with Cummings, that makes her gay. People can say the same thing about Jeremiah Kuhn association with Prince Johnson. But I'll leave it there.
Great. Dr. Saki Galafoli.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, we all saw the sermon, and most of us who usually are concerned about these sermons is that when you go into the public space and you say everyone is invited at my church, I am going to respond to the vice president tomorrow, and I'm going to deal with her aggressively, and you all got to be. And when the people show up, now you are putting out a political challenge. You are inviting the folks to come, and when the folks come, then you say they are attacking you. They never entered the church, but they were outside making lots of noises. They were partisans. They came from everywhere. And then he came on. Not only that, but then the last sermon he attacked Mr. Cummings, and he said some graphic stuff in the pulpit for the man who is a man of God, saying some of the things he said. And then after we deal with this, then we will go and deal with the response from the CPP, which even shocked me as a political professional organization to have written such a response to such a graphic sermon. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Jerome. It's good that you went back to the previous experience where Prince Johnson's church was attacked. I call it as an attack because it doesn't uh, it doesn't meet the invitation. When someone invites you to the church, it doesn't mean you have to come and disturb, the church. That was disturbance, and that was not the way Prince Johnson intended for an invitee to come to his church. Right, the church is considered secret sacred, a holy place, that you don't take your political gangsterism there, as we saw with the MPP slash CDC group. I think that should be condemned. That should have been heavily condemned. And I see people are looking at that experience Prince Johnson had, comparing that to his recent sermon. I think the sermon he preached, the things he said as an honorable man, I don't expect that an honorable man should say that. But we all know Prince Johnson, the kind of person he is, someone who has a record of murdering innocent people. Whatever comes from his mouth, I mean, is the Prince Johnson that we have known. So I don't expect anything, decent to come from him. Yeah, he expressed his opinion, and we have to respect him for his opinion. He expressed. That's why he said those things, which I wouldn't say. Right? An honorable man should not say that. And I think the Unity Party, or people who are aligned with Prince Johnson, should come up to make a statement about that. That an honorable man, equally so, even if you are not happy with what Prince Johnson said, I don't think you should be happy with how his church was attacked. Aside with Mr. Kamara, when he talked about what motivated PYJ's speech, of course PYJ would have been quiet. You wouldn't have heard him saying these things had his church not been attacked. I think his church being attacked should be the things that are on the lips of Liberians to talk about. Because listen to Prince Johnson talking about he's going to bring 500 men, ex-combatant, which I saw that was just bad. Considering our country, the history of our country, we know what ex-combatants mean. He said things like that. And I think we should be holding Prince Johnson for saying things that could instigate violence, not things about other people's private life. Now, I don't dwell on discussing people's private life. What you do in your bedroom, what you do behind the scene is none of my business. But when people bring it up in the public, I sometimes keep mute on it because I feel it's none of my business. And we have to respect people. When you're talking about someone's private life, their sexuality, as an honorable person or whoever you are, you have to state the facts. If you're saying things by rumors, by hearing, I don't buy into those things. The issue of Mamani Diakedi interview with Cummings, there was no indication that Cummings subscribes to such practice. He said it. If people don't understand a simple English, I think that's what giving a lot of people a hard time. And I think Mr. Cummings came up and clarified that statement. If you have not been following, I don't think we should be dwelling on whether Mr. Cummings is this lifestyle is part of him or not. We know he's a decent man. I know him. We all know he's a decent man. But all because of this politics, people try to play on that statement he made with that he find it a difficult lifestyle. It's just we shouldn't be dwelling on these things. They don't make sense. They don't even add anything to the national discourse for us to discuss what's really important for the country. What do we need to focus on as a country, other than someone's statement that they talk about a lifestyle that some of you clearly understood that he said it. What he said is understandable, but you label him as being someone with this type of lifestyle. What does it have to do with him? And then Prince Johnson talking about Charlene. Look, we have to discuss what each party bring to the table. If you want to rescue Liberia, you have to come with your what? Plan and discuss it, not someone's personal life. If you want to fix Liberia, come with your plan. You can't be calling somebody a murderer, but you have other people who orchestrated murders in the country. You align with them. This goes to the CPP slash Cummings. He is aligned with some people who supported brutal governments in this place. We know them. And if you're in a glass house, do not throw stone. All the parties have criminals around them. No political party has the moral authority to bring Prince Johnson down because everyone has an alignment with some type of criminal. The CDC, MPP, the UP, MRD or Prince Johnson, the ANC, CPP, they have the ability, they have the Louis Brown, they have the Daniel Chea. I'm not sure whether he's still there. They have the names are there. These names are not new names in the political scene. All of these people, the Liberian worker Hopojo, they are all political Hopojos. The likes of Louis Brown, he just survives on government. When he's not in government, he's suffering today. That's
Great.
the kind of man that should be on your face of we are tired suffering, right? That man was with Tiller. He was security advisor with Tiller. Some of you know that being a security advisor to Charles Tiller, it wasn't a small thing. But you have him within your ranks, and then you call him Prince Johnson a murderer? Look, people have to be serious.
Okay.
Everyone has a Gina around the bargaining table. Stop throwing stone when you're in a glass house. Face the
Great.
issues, discuss what you bring to the table to fix the country.
Great. Mr. Kamara,
Yes, sir.
in this country and everywhere else, when someone is coming to look for a job, we do background check, don't we all?
Yes, sir.
Why do you think we do background check? Is to find out, like in my field, it is mandatory that anybody who are hired does something called level 2 background check. That means local, state, federal, and FBI. We are looking for pedophiles. We are looking for domestic violence. We are looking for terrorism. So your lifestyle does come into question when we are hiring you. How you live your life. So if the Kente had asked Mr. Cummings and said, there is a rumor that going around, it has been persistent. We are hoping you will put this to rest. Are you gay? And he said, dear Kente, it is a lifestyle that I struggle with. And then dear Kente stopped and said, are you sure you want to answer this question this way? Then he said, I want the Liberian people to see the real Alex Cummings. Then he said, during political time, the politician will come up with a political answer. But that is the real Cummings. So, Mr. Kamara, why are these people pushing back saying we shouldn't discuss it when this is a part of the talk for those of us who got children in a country that is so poor? And we had an experience with Robert Sally where people, children were basically being damaged for cell phone, for sneakers, for things that they see on TV they want. Isn't that a concern that we now, the Basel people say, a man or a woman who has seen the carcass of a boa constructor in the swamp never, ever venture in the swamp anymore? Have we seen this before? Isn't this a topic that we need to discuss thoroughly, Mr. Kamara?
Well, let me be on record, first of all, by saying I do not believe in any fiber of my being that Mr. Cummings is gay or any form of homosexual. I don't. And the second thing here is the analogy you give doesn't hold water. To me, it's like apples and oranges. You say background check. How can you then talk about somebody's sexuality? What background check you do, including somebody's sexuality? Have you ever seen that background check before? So it does not hold water. However, people should be free to discuss what they feel like discussing. And the voters then must filter the different opinions and points and pick what is significant, what applies to their life, the improvement of their livelihood, what applies to them. That is what they should focus on. But I am not here to determine what somebody can talk, what someone cannot talk. Let me just say, when somebody say, uh, there's something they call psychology of personality. If you say, because I am an honorable man, I'm talking to Mr. Evans, I'm an honorable man, and therefore I must respond or react to things like Mr. Gima would or Mr. Saki would, and then it's unfortunate you don't understand what individualism means. No two people have the same amount of approach to a given thing. So you cannot conclude or fix in your mind as to how each senator would react to something because they're honorable. They're human beings. Okay. So, but no, this topic, like Saki said, it's not something that most Liberian people should focus on. One thing I know, we have parliamentarian, we have that kind of system. Even if Comey was pro-homosexual, I can guarantee you the possibility of he passing any laws in Liberia that gives homosexual rights will never hold. So it's nothing for people to worry about. Just wanted to let everybody know that.
Elvis, I think Mr. Kamara trying to be a politician here. The the public is doing the interview, okay? The public is doing its interview. And in its interview, they're doing their background check by probing as to who are these people. And they have the legitimate right through the media, not anybody. This was never a gotcha movement. Through the media, the young man said, we have listened to Liberians over the years, and this is a persistent concern of the Liberian people. Address this. And he addressed it away, and the young man tried to give him a political leeway to escape. And he affirmed that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want you to take all my points, but let me say this. You know, we in the United States, our minds have been open. We become more tolerant, if not accepting, of people with different or what we call alternative lifestyles, which is fine and is great, and enlightened society. We are looking at politics in Liberia, who perhaps has not reached that quote unquote social enlightenment where people will be acceptance of people who are of different sexual orientations than themselves. So when we are talking about Cummings, it's in the light of how the Liberian people are going to see him who are in Liberia. And politics is based on personalities. So people want to know who you are as a person, you know, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. There are people who are womanizers. Somebody like President Weah, for example, there's a perception out there that he's a womanizer. A man like myself or somebody who is a heterosexual male may not see that to be a bad thing. You know, you have other presidents in the past allegedly who like younger girls. A mother or somebody who is a bit more sensitive to that would see that as a problem. So people want to know who their presidents are or who their potential presidents are. So when you look at politicians, one of the things that they do, they bring their family on the stage with them. You got the wife, you got maybe a couple of daughters, and let everybody look at it and say, "Oh, look at that beautiful family." In that same token, would it be as accepted if a man brought his partner on the stage or a woman brought her partner on the stage with her two adopted kids or with their two adopted sons? Would that be acceptable in our society? Perhaps not. Not in Liberia, of course not. So when people ask this question about common sexuality, it's because that's what the people in Liberia is asking, not necessarily what we in America. This election is not about us in the diaspora. It's about the people back home. These are the issues that they care about. These are the issues that they want to get clarification on. So it's up to Cummings to make clarification. Somebody said he was on Spoon TV and he said he wasn't gay. Fine. If you think that's an adequate response, fine. For me, I'm only saying that I don't think he answered that question in the right way. And if he wanted to throw support behind a specific group that's been marginalized, he can do that. He will be a brave person. Maybe in the annals of history, somebody will say, "Oh, Cummings was a pioneer for quote unquote gay rights in Liberia," if he wants to be known as that. But he hasn't emphatically come out and said that I'm not gay, I misspoke, and people are misinterpreting what I said. I've never heard that about from him. And lastly, I would say this: you know, Cummings. I don't even want to go down that road, but the thing that's hampering Cummings the most is the lack of transparency in his life. People don't know him. There's some kind of opaqueness, on his life. People don't know who he is. They don't know his family well. I've never even seen a picture of Cummings' kids. I don't see his rally, his kids that he has in the United States. They don't go on the stage with him with his grandkids. Have a nice family moment where you can say, "Oh, that's the man's son. Oh, that's the man's daughter. That's his granddaughter." We don't see that. So just the optics from Cummings is not good as a man who is a heterosexual male who has a family that he's raised, has a son who's doing this, a daughter who's doing that. We don't see that from him. So just the optics on the Liberian psyche for Cummings is bad. If you want to disprove that rumor, you got kids. You got your son, Boyka. Then he has a daughter. He has a granddaughter near Naya. So he bring your family together. Let us see them. This is a potential first family of our country. We want to see them. We want to be introduced to them. He has never done that in over 5 years. He's never done that. So I will leave it there, and I will pass the mic to somebody else.
Great. Doctor, real quick, after the sermon in Monrovia there, the CPP came up with a statement. And I will read briefly what it says here. It says the collaborating political party CPP condemns the foul trash spilled by the unrepentant murderer Prince Johnson of the Movement for Democratic Reconstruction (MDR), which holds the vice standard bearer position of the Unity Party during his so-called church service on Sunday, May 28, 2023. The murderous warlord defamed the purpose of worship and defiled the name of the Christian church, screaming hate-filled messages and lies against the standard bearer of the CPP, Mr. Alexander Cummings. The recently named charismatic Vice President, Charlene Bronski, and the Chairman Emeritus, Alternative National Congress, Anthony Horatio Gould, the false prophet and cold-blooded murderer that murdered hundreds of thousands of Liberians, including popular musician Tecumseh Robert, used the pulpit of the church to hurl ridicule, unfounded, hate-filled, and threatening rants, which are just lies, and it went on. I find this to be an awkward writing from a political organization to write to combat vile languages with vile language. I mean, I couldn't fathom, Mr. Dr. Galafali.
Yeah, first of all, I want to make something clear here regarding what you said initially about background check. Let's be honest here, and we all have experience working here in the U.S. There are anti-discrimination, laws, and background checks do not cover people's sexual orientation and things. I think we have to be very careful here.
Let me make this clear.
Yeah.
The analogy is that when you're making a background search, the purpose of a background search is to reveal, to find out.
Give me don't fix it. You can't fix it. Let it mess up. There's no way around that.
When the people are interviewing you for
Taji,
excuse me.
Taji.
No.
Taji. Go ahead, Saki. Give me
let me say
Mr. Dr. Saki.
Yeah.
I want you to understand this in the context that when you are going to the public, say I want to be president.
Yes.
They have the right to do any background search to find out anything. And if you don't do it, the opposition will do it. In this country, we call it opposition research. So it is not strange. We are not saying on the federal level here that when you hire, you will say we're not hiring you because you hold it. But the reason we do background check in politics is to find dirt on someone.
Yeah, but it has no relationship in
I think the right word, Mr. Gaiman, is opposition research. I think that's the right word you're looking for.
I just told you when you are doing politics, that's why we do opposition research to find dirt. Okay? And so that's why
back to the issue. I don't know why we should spend time discussing people's sexual orientation or what their belief systems are about who they want to, be with, whether it's male or woman. I don't see that as anything that will add substance to our body politics and any solution to our problem. Notwithstanding, I've listened to Mr. Cummings. I know he does not subscribe to that kind of life. I think within the Liberian body politics is being used against him because of the statement, and people have been misinterpreting it. And very importantly, the guy who came up with that whole issue, I don't know his full name, Obed. He's on a video confessing that he made it up. Haven't you listened to it, Mr. Gaiman?
But that was after Cummings. That was after Cummings' interview.
Listen, that was after Cummings' interview. I have the live interview with Diakente. Yeah. So whatever Obey said means nothing. I'm talking about what the man said.
His interview was clear. He said it, but he didn't.
It wasn't as clear, Dr. Galafali.
That's how you take it because you're using it because we have a gullible society. People just absorb anything and run with it. That's why people are
But
using it.
Dr.
But
Galafoli,
let's leave it. Let,
we'll discuss.
If you tell somebody alcoholism is
if you,
something I struggle with, that
it,
person will make the point of connection that you might be an alcoholic.
that's
So
your
if you struggle with
interpretation.
something, that
That's how
means
you
it's a life.
understood. And he came back
So
and
okay, doctor,
clarified
explain
that.
it to us.
He
Explain it to
told
us.
you. He told you if somebody says a lifestyle I struggle with. I mean, I asked you how do you struggle with it? Ask him, and he answered. He told people here that only he said he's not gay. So what's the big deal? Why should we still be dwelling on that statement?
Dr. Saki,
Yeah, he came and clarified it.
Dr.
Didn't he
Saki,
clarify it?
Dr.
I'm
Saki,
asking. Didn't he clarify it?
I ask you, we are on a different topic.
Okay, yeah, that was. I just wanted to make that clear.
We are talking
Let's
about the
move on to the next
response.
thing. Oh yeah, it's important. I don't think we should dwell on comments or I mean people's sexuality as an issue. We spend too much time here on that. Now the issue of the CPP response. My question to the CPP is: did they respond to the MPP CDC attack on PYJ Church?
Yes,
Did they respond?
yes.
Did they have any? Did they respond angrily, like it's something that has to do with the security of the state, as compared to talking about someone's personal life or their sexuality and all that, which I don't weigh highly. I think the CPP should be more, and every Liberian should have been more or angry with the attack on Prince Johnson Church because he's a Liberian. Forget about
Mr.
whether he's a
Dr.
murderer or
Saki,
not.
I
But
take umbrage to that statement that you're making.
I think
I
that
take great
that
offense to
there
that statement that you're
really
making. This
Dr.
is a
that
Saki,
murderer. Somebody who murdered thousands of people, and the Liberian people
and,
should
and,
be
and
crying because somebody went to his church to protest. Is
you
that
know
what you're saying on this platform?
you know the funny thing about it
No,
is
come on,
that
man.
the
This guy
very
killed
we are
people
you
on camera,
support
and the Liberian people as a nation state should be crying
Dr.
because somebody
Saki,
protested for this guy's church.
you are
Come
not
on.
addressing.
You're a learned man. You shouldn't say that.
until you establish a court which you promise the Liberian people that you are going to support a war crimes court. Let Prince Johnson be Prince Johnson. Leave him alone with
Leave
this
him alone.
murderer only when he's not on your side. You know, let me say one thing. You know, I saw I saw people who posted the comments about Prince Johnson as a murderer. Those very people. One of those was Moriah
Testing,
Yekula from the CPP, or Ellen, you know, girl who came up through UP.
testing.
They were all confident. They were all happy when Prince Johnson supported the UP in 2011. Come down to CDC. Prince Johnson supported and he wasn't a killer. Now, all of these people, they recycle these quote unquote murderers. They use them, but when they're not on their side, they're ready to talk about he's a murderer. He's not a murderer in your eye when he's supporting you. We have to be very honest about this. But to say
That,
he's a murderer, he's for
Doctor,
this. So when someone attacks him, you only say because he's a murderer, so he's not entitled to his own safety. Is that why the police did
Every,
not
everything else you say,
intervene?
I agree with you on that point. The point I
No,
disagree with you on that you're calling for Liberians to be angry that somebody went to protest for the Prince Johnson Church.
no,
You know how many families
they
Prince
did
Johnson
not only
destroyed in
go
that
to
country?
protest. They
The
went
same
with
people who Prince Johnson killed, their family members should be angry because
that's not a
somebody protested for his church.
justification. There are a lot of killers and people who
What's not a
call
justification?
themselves
Somebody killing your
killing.
family members and you should be
No,
happy
no.
for them and advocating
listen,
for them?
Morris,
You
Come on,
have
man.
killers
Doc-
within the ranks of CDC. You don't talk about them
Doctor,
because they are part of you. My
Doctor,
point here is that you have all of these parties have murderers, killers with them. But only when
we are not,
Prince Johnson speaks, because he's not on the other side, he's a
Saki,
murderer, he's a killer.
Saki, 1 minute. Mr. Ali Kamara,
Yes, sir.
I think you have read the CPP response.
Mhm,
I don't know if you have read it in its totality,
mhm.
but looking at the language of this response, which is a public document, the way this language, this release is written, if so, like the people say, what the young man name, uh, Mr. What the CPP president says, if you cross from now on, when you cross my mind, I'm going to cross your mind. That's Mr. Musa ability. He said now, from now on, you cost my mind or cost you mine and all that other stuff. Prince Johnson may have said something in his church that was vile and all of that, but the way they responded by themselves using vile languages and denigrating and isn't that what makes them any different from Prince Johnson?
All right, great question, Mr. Gilman. But we're on a very big platform, very reputable platform. So before we jump to one thing, I would beg that I have a second to straighten out some things because people do listen to us. A
Look,
couple.
you have the opportunity to take your 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and you can go back and address stuff and then go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. To say that because we are abroad, so we are enlightened than the people back in Liberia, that we are more tolerant than the people back in Liberia. That's feeble, and I think a statement like that should be retracted. Because accepting homosexuality in America does not make you tolerant. It just means that it's on the book, it's a law that you must follow. Why don't you in America tell the federal government to make polygamy a law, a right for Americans to marry more than one wife? See how they will cuss you out in this country. So it doesn't mean they're tolerant. It's just part of their culture. Homosexuality is not an endorsed African culture. It doesn't make them intolerant. To support what Dr. Gola Fali said, you have general power in the NPFL. You have Valley Taylor working with this Monrovia City Mayor Jefferson Koijee. Valley Taylor, former ATU fighter and former Ulimo fighter. General Power, LPC fighter, Lord fighter. Or we can go on naming them. Then you're talking about the MPFA that is solely responsible for the catastrophe and destruction of Liberia. You get group from them calling themselves the youth wing, going to attack another person they claim is a murderer. But like Mr. Saki said, who is a criminal? A criminal is not who you accuse. A criminal is not who you allege. A criminal is who has been adjudicated and found guilty of a crime. Have you adjudicated Mr. Johnson? So let us be clear about stuff. Our sentiments and our emotions are different from actual realities. You have to go to court. There is no statute of limitation on murder. If you think you killed somebody, go to court. You don't even have to wait for war crime court. It's simple. It's in the Liberian Constitution. But coming to your letter, the reason why I have not spoken about this letter is just a stupid letter, for the lack of a better word. Whoever wrote that letter continues to exemplify the ignorance of these people calling themselves CPP. You say in your letter, despicably lie and say Prince Johnson is a vice running mate to the Unity Party, which is stupid by nature. Prince Johnson is nowhere near the running mate to Joseph Yuma Boakai. But the thing about the letter that seems so ingenuous is these ANC people, including Mr. Alexander Cummings, wanted Prince Johnson in their camp. They went after Jeremiah Cohn vigorously, and they were unsuccessful. How can you then try, by all indication, all means, label them or demonize them in such a way? If you knew he was a criminal, why would I take $50,000 of my own money and give it to a criminal? I wouldn't support a criminal. If you know he was a murderer, he killed hundreds of people, why were you guys going to his house? Why would you enter a murderer's house? Don't you think he can kill you? And that is why I haven't given much credence to that letter. That letter is stupid. It doesn't make any sense, and no reasonable people should even use that letter to make any form of reference if I was in the CPP.
Mr. Eastman, welcome, sir.
Thank you, and sorry for being late, gentlemen. A few things I had to tuck away. Did we first about this letter? Did we read it for the public to know what contents in this letter?
Yes, 1 minute. Ladies and gentlemen, please share this show.
Yeah, give me ready.
Listen, I'm getting a notification here from Facebook that I can't share the show from this end. I don't know why, but so if you can share, go ahead and share. But yes, uh, Mr. Eastman, the letter is here. I don't know if you have a copy. You want me to send it to you? But
Yeah, please.
yeah, the reason we are there, when you go into On Point chat room, it will be right there for you to see. It will post there
Okay.
March 29th at 5:53 p.m. The reason we are asking this question is the way this letter is written. For those of us who come from the politicians and organizations, don't write this way. It looks like a personal letter, vindictive, directly going at somebody, and going after Prince Johnson this way. To me, it doesn't sound like you are going after an organization or an establishment. Instead, the Prince Johnson was attacking an organization, the leadership, the entire, like he said in here. Instead, they are calling him blooded murderer, cold-blooded murderer. He killed folks. He killed Tecumseh Robert. All of these things. I think Mr. Aliu Kamara here was wrong when he said these people cannot be called criminal because they have not been adjudicated. If we apply that across the board, okay,
That's the law. That's law 101.
Well, listen to this. We understand this. If that is what we apply, there's something called our own personal public opinion. We may not have the power. A lady who was raped by a soldier, even though that soldier have not been adjudicated in the court of law, she knows that he's a criminal. So you cannot say that. If that is the case, then the whole Liberia is a sin.
That analysis is faulty.
No, it's not faulty because you said the person has to be adjudicated.
I was not the one that was being raped. So as far as my opinion is concerned, he's an alleged rapist.
Okay.
From my perspective, because I wasn't the one who was raped.
If we use that analogy, I mean the entire Liberia, everybody is a sin because all the murderers that were around, people who witnessed their parents being killed, you are saying because they have not been adjudicated means they didn't do it. Mr. Eastman.
Tell that to the people of Nima, who said the children was storing wells. Is that alleged?
That's
people
alleged.
Know that. That's a plea that people
we have not
them.
found any evidence.
Okay.
No evidence anywhere.
Okay.
Children being thrown in the well.
Can I come in?
To be fair, you should also reference the vice president's statement. I think it's in the same line. Bring the vice president in. Let's compare what she said about Prince Johnson and what the CPP said. Let's have a balanced discussion. I think that would be very good.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Eastman.
You know, one thing I'm proud to be on this program was because the level of courtesy and dignity we afforded our discussion. And we should not allow our discussion to be debased. Not because somebody has a particular persuasion, they should debase our discussion. They are pulling us all down in the gutter when they do so. We need to show courtesy and dignity to each other as long as we're on this platform. If we cannot adhere to that, then we no need be in a discussion with intellectuals. You need to just go in your little corner and spew all your hatred where you want to spew it.
What's your point? Let us in. We don't know what you're talking about.
This is the thing I'm talking about. Why are you cutting me off?
No, because you're saying so. We don't know what you're saying.
Why are you cutting me off?
Mr. Kamara,
you didn't call him by the name. Let him talk.
I didn't call your name. Why are you cutting me off? This is the courtesy I'm talking about. If you want to know, why are you cutting me off? Okay, so if I'm allowed to continue, I read the letter, and the letter, it was in response to Prince Johnson's statements at the church. And Prince Johnson's statements, I heard them, and I was taken aback to hear those sort of statements being uttered from a pulpit. I'm one of those don't agree that we need to use the pulpit for political bantering, for denigrating other people, calling them names, and all sorts of. I mean, if some of you didn't recall, he says, Eugene Nambega AIDS. He called what Alexander Cummings a homosexual. He called Charlene Brumskin probably as a lesbian. I mean, why are we going to go down to this level? Are we going to stoop so low? It's not. This is what brings about the war. You know, I find it very surprising that, you know, people who have been hunted before, like how they hunted Madingo people and Crown people, you know, how they hunted you before, that today you are trying to, you know, put a target on another group's back. Have you forgotten what happened to you? You know, we say God don't like ugly. Have you forgotten when they hunted you? Then now you're trying to send people to hunt other people? And we wonder why we find ourselves in this place. We find ourselves in this place because we continue to commit the same error again and again. We don't learn from our mistakes. We should not be singling out any tribe at all. This we know for a fact that people were chased after and hurt before because of tribe. Then why are we doing it today? Why are we still repeating these errors? Huh? So I'm quite surprised. You know, I worked closely with Prince Johnson during the war because he overtook the LEC and I was on duty. And they preserve us. They didn't do nothing to us, but we were there to restore power. And in restoring power, I had to work along with the colonels and Prince Johnson directly all the time. And I know he's fond of saying things loosely, but when I heard his statements, I was a little aback, especially from the pulpit. I think that desecrated the pulpit. That's not the kind of words that you want coming, you know, when you go to church to worship God. You know, people go to church to worship God, to learn the word, to understand how they can become better people. There was nothing about that, how you can become a better Christian, how you can become a better friend and brother to your neighbors. There was nothing in that speech. So when did the church turn to a spewing ground? So about the letter itself, the letter is a retaliation, and I think I don't see who the author of the letter is not shown, maybe because it was cut off. But I do see they mentioned the CPP, but we've seen people accuse other people of war crimes and war crimes code, the murderers. As long as somebody has not been convicted of a crime, I cannot call them a criminal. You can call them other names like somebody who has done something before. Like I told you, I'm an eyewitness to a lot of things. So, but to call somebody a criminal, a person is not a criminal until proven by court. But yet you can know if somebody has done something, a crime. Okay? You know if somebody has killed somebody. You know if somebody has stolen money. All right? So this rebuttal from the CPP, I wouldn't have done a rebuttal in that way. I would have appealed just what some of the things they did. I would have appealed to the councils of churches that what is their commentary about something like this? What is their stance about this? Because, you know, Christians are called to a high order to be keepers of peace and lovers of God and man. If we don't call a spade, which I think somebody said on this program, we hail our thieves, the people who do all sorts of things. They are heroes because they're with us, and when they're not with us, then we start calling them names. We have to start being honest with ourselves. You know, we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, where have we failed? And don't call Dima name, don't call and Saki name or Elvis name first. Look at examine yourself. Where have you failed as an individual, as a Liberian, as a patriot, as a person, whoever you aspire to be? Before you can call somebody else a failure, have you corrected your failures? So, Liberians, we need to look in the mirror and admit the things we're doing wrong, you know, and not allow ourselves to repeat the same errors of yesterday that caused 250,000 people of our nation to die. You know, it doesn't pay.
Thank you.
And it never has paid, and it will not pay tomorrow. We have an election, impending election coming. This election should be based on the merits of the candidates. What you and I believe they can do for the nation, to change the nation. Okay? To rebuild Liberia. If they're capable of bringing Liberia together, if they can handle the task of halting corruption to the extent it is in Liberia, educating our children, providing food and jobs for our graduates, helping our mothers be able to do their mark. That's what the elections should be about. But when people go towards personal attacks, I mean, on bogus attacks on each person, that's not where we're going to get any progress.
Thank you.
And we need to be careful there, because we've been here before, and it looks like we're headed back there. So I think we need to be very careful how we deal with this thing, and how we consider each other, you know, and it's more important that we exercise courtesy to one another. At no point you don't have a right to cut off anyone, to interrupt anyone, to be discourteous to anyone. We can go in a pissing match, but I would do no need of doing that. So why? You know, if you can't be an intellectual, then go somewhere where you can be a ruffian and do what you want to do.
Mr. Gibbon, can I come in for a second?
Yeah, 1 minute. Mr. Eastman said he didn't know who wrote the letter. The letter at the end, it says here, Martin Said Cully, Deputy National Secretary General CPP, and it was dated. So he wrote on behalf of the CPP. Mr. Kamara, when you respond, I'll go to Mr. Elvis, and then.
But wait a minute! I didn't call his name. What is he responding to?
No. I posted the same thing to him about the letter.
Okay.
And
Mr. Gilman.
Yeah, I'm coming. And then after that, I want you to take off on number 2. Major Koijee's warning to transport and justice minister and those within the government that are benefiting from the government and doing absolutely nothing. He found that to be undermining the government. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Kamara, then Mr. Elvis.
Mr. Gilman and everybody else, Mr. Eastman, we have not, especially me, I have not come on the show to be lectured by anyone. We take upon ourselves, just like you leave your business schedules to come here, we do leave our business schedules to come here. The only reason why a Madingo man was chased or a Gio man was chased is because of lack of information. What we are doing here with disseminating information, the idea that people should be silent, they cannot say exactly how they feel, because someone is going to chase someone, is what led us to the war in the first place. People must have the freedom to express themselves the way they know how. You are either tolerant of it, or then you don't deal with them. Well, you don't lecture them how to behave just because you have a certain way you want them to behave. Maybe they're not you. Maybe you're more sophisticated than them. Maybe you should try to handle them based on your level of your sophistication. But by lecturing them, they can see that as you're talking down to them. So when you talk about respect, let it go all around. I will appreciate that. Now, the Jefferson Koijee stuff that you are talking about, Mr. Gilman, is that, look, let me tell you, And I said this before the whole tribal conversation came in, which we have never mentioned tribe here since we've been here all day. The Jefferson Koijee stuff to me, like I said in my opening, the Liberian people will focus on the debate that actually improves their livelihood. I don't have a whole lot to say about that Jefferson Koijee stuff. Jefferson Koijee is always in the news. He's no new. So hopefully, Golafale can take over from there, Morris.
Before I go to Golafali, Mr. Elvis, uh, Jefferson Koijee made
Yes.
specific, he gave instances where they have the intelligence, they have, in fact, starting tomorrow, I heard there will be a press release where a group of journalists in Liberia, they have uh, invoices, return checks, payments made, pickup trucks, transportation being bought, being delivered on a hand, all of these things going back and forth. And they are saying, he is saying, those within the CDC government that are on payroll and deliberately failing to produce and trying to play two sides of the game, hoping that somebody wins and they keep themselves in the good graces of those folks. He thinks those people should come out. They know most of them and let them resign. Isn't that a priority? Isn't that a proper thing to do as the Secretary General of a political party if you find mold within your party?
Thank you, Mr. Gavin. And before I even get to my response, let me say this. Uh, I've been on this platform before on another show, and just in full disclosure, I'm a liberal in my worldview. My worldview, I'm more liberal and progressive. I want everybody of any, ethnic group or sexual orientation to be free to express themselves as long as they're doing it within the confines of the law. I've, I've advocated for gay rights on this platform before, even when it wasn't a popular thing to do. I'm sure, Mr. Gayman, you remember that show? We were both on a panel together at that time.
Sure.
So I mean, no way preaching against hate against any one group of people. We're talking about politics here. So your worldview and your beliefs and ideology will affect how people view you politically. That's what we're discussing here. It's not about tribe. We're only talking about what Cummings said about his perceived sexuality or supporting gay rights. That's the thing that we was discussing. And I was saying that it may not be politically expedient for him in a country like Liberia, where people in that country has not perhaps evolved to maybe accepting or being tolerant of that lifestyle, if that's how they perceive him to be. That was the point I was making. But to your point, Mr. Gimme, to your question, in terms of what Jefferson Koijee said, I have no problem with that statement, except when it comes to elected officials. Because people who are elected are not serving at the will and pleasure of the president. They have a constituency who elected them, and they serve their constituents. So thereby, Jefferson Koijee talking to the Speaker of the House or the pro tem, they have, he has no authority to threaten them or to tell them to do anything that is not in the best interest of their constituents. So in that regard, I think his statement was misplaced in regards to the elected officials. But those who are serving at the will and pleasure of the president, appointees of the government, definitely the president can fire them for any reason he pleases, especially if they're not performing or they're colluding with other parties to bring down the president, or they're trying to jump ship, because maybe the writing is on the wall and the thing that the president won't be reelected for a second term. That's their prerogative. They can do what they want to do. They have the freedom to associate and disassociate, and the president has the same freedom to fire them if he so deems fit. So thereby, that statement is apt when it comes to people who are appointees, but not when it comes to people who are elected. So I'll leave it there and I'll pass the mic.
Osaki, I am okay. I am a registered bona fide Republican, and I'm conservative in my thoughts, progressive in my ideology. So here we are. As much as I'm progressive, I got limits. There are certain things. For instance, in the state of Florida here, we have people that have written some books, and some of these books, in fact, if you went to Florida the last month or so, you went into Target, they have begun to print gay pampers, gay underwear for babies, gay pride, jumpsuit for babies. I mean, we are talking from the cradle, and they are writing some of the books. And in some of the books now they have one they call the Gay BC. It is ABC for toddlers. So some of us who are liberal in our ideology but have some limits have saying no. At this point, these things are not age appropriate to me. We should have some limit as to when this kind of subject should be introduced. And there are those on the liberal side saying the sooner you do it, the better. So here we are. We are not saying that some people should not live or should not exist. In that context, we address that. But now let's go to the political party as a Republican, as a conservative. If you were in the Republican ranks, you were part of the Republican Party, and we find you to be doing fundraisers of any kind for the Democrats or for any other political party, it is blasphemous. It's not going to happen. And I think the same thing on the Democratic side. It is fine you to be raising money for the Republican. On the other hand, while you are in the employ or the Democratic caucus or the Democratic Party, you are in trouble. Yes. So what do you see? What Jefferson Koijee was saying about mole within the party?
Yeah, Mr. Goodman, to be honest, I was lost at some point, in your previous comments about the issue of gay, which I I read just right now understood what you were driving to. But I don't actually see any connection between that, but let's leave it as it is. You know, the issue of Jefferson Koji's statement, which I think people like Elvis, Mr. Morris, who's a We Are supporter, should find very offensive, and on it's something that if you read Article 17 of the Constitution, it gives people the right to associate, which Mr. Morris clearly stated, but it doesn't give anyone right to threaten someone because they associate with another political party. If you want to fire the man because there's a perception or there's a belief that he associates with another, you can do that based on your party's own constitutional ideology, but it's not based on the government, how the government operates that. When someone is associated with a political party and he's working, the government is not a personal property of CDC. People have to bury that in their mind. It's not a personal property of any political party. It's a public property. So anyone, every Liberian has a right to work in government and associate with any political party. You saw that during the UP time. You saw that people were associating. There were people like Samuel Tweeden work in UP government. There were people in the UP who were associating with CDC. Did you hear the city mayor or any other government official coming out to threaten them? I think that should be something that people should be honest to talk about, that it threatens the peace. These are things that can bring war. With Jefferson talk about life and death in his statement. It should take you off your seat. But you are not bothered. People are not bothered by that. But they're bothered by what Prince Johnston said, his opinion about people's personal life. And they are concerned about how CPP responded. But look at what Jefferson said and compare that to what Prince Johnston said about, the CPP people. Hasn't that raised concern for people? For We Are supporter to say, for Mr. Morris to say and say, he has no problem with such statement. You should have problem with that kind of statement. Because during the Taylor time, when people made those kind of statements, we know what happened. The records are there. When Taylor said we will go street to street, house to house, we know what happened. When Jefferson Koijee said that they will go after people who he think, or based on their confidential information, that they are in the government, they are benefiting from this government, but they're supporting other political parties. That means Jefferson Koijee does not even know the constitutional mandate of the government. He does not even know that people have the right to associate. I think those are the
Please
things we should be.
don't
We should
misinterpret
be.
what I said, Doctor.
No, you
I said
said
people who are
no
appointed,
problem with the
Mr.
people who
statement.
are appointed,
Mr.
appointee,
Morris, 1 minute.
appointee of the president. I
Whether
have no
people
problem with
are
that.
appointed or not, they have the right to associate. You do not threaten them and talk about this thing is about life and death. You do not threaten their existence. They have the absolute right. You have nothing to do with it. You can use your governmental constitutional power to relieve them of their duty. That's fine. That's the will and pleasure of the president. He can do it anytime. But
I
you
said
don't
that.
have a government official saying that because people are associating with other political parties, you're going to get at them, you're going to go after them and get them off their job. And this thing is about life and death. And you sit here and say you have no problem with that statement, but at the same time stating that people have the right to associate. I think it was reckless on the part of Jefferson Koijee, as always it has been. He doesn't say things that make sense. I don't know why he's a sitting mayor, a man that is a sitting mayor of one of the oldest countries in Africa. It's just a mockery. He doesn't understand what democracy is. He has no understanding. That's why the CDC-led government should be voted out
Great.
on October 10th. Vote them out because they are all elements of destruction. They say things that don't mean anything good for our country.
Great.
So Jeff's statement, again, I will emphasize, anyone who says it's no problem, then you don't understand the Constitution.
Mr. Eastman, Mr. Golofali Psyche, we can tell that he's a scientist. He's not into the social sciences, and you can tell. Now, here we are. If you are a member of an organization, the direct definition of an organization is we have shared values. We have shared sense of purpose and sense of direction. If you are in our midst as a member of the Republican Party and you on our committee and you are taking information and our resources from our war room and you are giving it to the war room of the opposition in politics, that is the greatest sin that you will ever commit, that you are sitting in our room on our drawing board and our secrets have been leaked, our resources. You are director of a ministry, you have a large budget, and you've been accused for underperforming, phoning the resources to find out that you have purchased 30 pickup trucks for the opposition. When they ask you, you say it's not 30, when it's 7. That is an admission of guilt. And
Mr. Gaiman,
yes.
we're not live on YouTube. Why are we not live on YouTube?
The man has the right. He's working. He's being paid. He has the right to do anything with his money.
So, Mr. Eastman, let's address the issue from the standpoint of being in a political party, being an organization, being a mole within an organization, and expect you to be treated as though you are a regular member or a regular member of the population that can disassociate at will.
Yeah, there are many dimensions to this. First of all, if you are appointed to a position in government, regardless of your appointment, you are still a civil servant. You are there, you serve at the will and pleasure of the president, but you are an employee of the government. You are a civil servant. And being a civil servant, you're supposed to act in interest of your people who employ you. Now, we come from a past where we had a one-party state. You couldn't support another party if you're going to work for the government. Are we going back there now? Are we going back to the times where if you're not part of the True Party, then you cannot work in the government? Are we going back to the time where the True Party was allowed to cut everybody's salaries? everybody, whether or not you even was a party member. So we have to draw a fine line. If we want a democracy, we should allow other parties who have qualified people to participate in government. That's what a mature government. We have several Republicans that are working in the government here, and this is a Democratic president. We should not limit partyism to who should get jobs as a civil servant. We have to be very careful not to walk back.
No. We are not talking about civil servant. You're getting them confused. Civil servant. Somebody, please. Can we all mute?
Go ahead.
Civil servant.
Somebody got something on.
It might be Mr. Eastman or Mr. Godfather.
Godfather.
Let me mute and see.
Hello.
If you have the team
Mr. Eastman, you're not muted. You gotta mute, Mr. Eastman.
But even if I'm mute, okay, let me mute. Hold on.
Hello. Okay, let me see.
Mr. Kamara too?
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah, that was Mr. Kamara. Okay. A civil servant are people who go through the processes, taking an exam, they get hired by the government, based on their qualification. They don't touch civil servants. We are talking about those that were appointed by the president. Even if you are a Republican and the Democrats hire you to carry out opposition, you have to toe the party line, the ideology, the foreign policy.
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, come on.
That's why I disagree.
Mr.
Wait, let me tell you why I disagree.
Let me give you an example.
That's why they're political appointees.
Let me give you an example. Colin Powell came to the Democratic Party to serve. Okay? You have to serve the foreign policy of that particular administration. Our foreign policy, the Democratic foreign policy was to disengage. You will disengage. If you cannot follow that, then you resign. If the Republican party, the foreign policy is to destabilize or to, bring in new person or remove person or go to war, and you accept that position, that is what you are going to do. You cannot come here and we appoint you to do something and you say, this is not my belief, it's against my religion, it's against my morality. It doesn't work. So yes, we have to be very clear here. When someone appoints you as a Democrat, as a laborer, you are going to toe the labor line.
Okay, let me show you my stance. Toting the party line and supporting government policies are not the same thing. When government sets out to do things, they create policies that the administration it follows. Now that you are right, you have to follow the government policy, support the government policy, or you should resign. But where the party stands, that's not necessarily your concern. If it is a government policy, it's a different thing than where the party stands. And as much as we have to be aware that this is politics. I mean, this is almost election time. And we are going to see a lot of movement in this manner. But if we're not going to be tolerant for other political parties to participate in government, then we're moving toward a one-party system. Now, if there's a government policy that has been adopted, everyone who's in that administration should follow the government policy. That is different. And we're not talking about supporting another party and not being able to participate in the government. And this is where I say we need to make the distinction. Because you belong to another party doesn't mean you cannot serve the administration. Does not mean that you cannot adhere to the policies of the government. Okay? You just have a different political persuasion. But policies and doing the work of the people can be done by anybody. And if we're not tolerant again, which happens a lot, as we observed all throughout Africa, then we're going again to those days where all say one, all say all. So say one, so say all. And we
Okay.
need to be careful, unless we don't want a democracy.
Mr. Elvis Morris,
Right.
in the state of Florida and other places now, we got two competing ideologies here. We have a group within the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party that are supporting groups that are supporting charter school. And they sell this, they support charter school. The other group is saying, instead of opening charter school, why spend millions to duplicate what the public school can do? Put the money back into the public school system and improve the public school system. Now, will you, as a school district officer who is a supporter of the public school system, will you hire a guy who supports building charter school all over the place? Will you bring him or her on as an administrator when a person tells you that I am not a supporter of public school? It doesn't add up, Mr. Elvis.
Right. I would say this, Mr. Gayman and Mr. Eastman, specifically to Mr. Eastman. Most policies are formulated within political parties, and when they get the power, then their policies, are supposed to be implemented by that president or that administration, right? So, for example, you never see a Democrat, you know, getting a Republican attorney general, never, because their ideology does not mesh with the Democratic ideology, their belief system. So when you're talking about political appointees, people like the justice ministers, people like the directors of different agencies, the presidents are putting those people there because they're to work in furtherance of his policy goals, to help him accomplish the policy goals that he has for the country. So if somebody who was there before is now starting to associate himself with or diametrically opposed ideology to the president's, then that person is no longer serving in the interest of the president, and he has the right constitutionally to disassociate himself with that person. Like Mr. Gaiman says, civil servants are different. Those are people who take specific tests. I don't know if they still take those tests to be civil servant. And those are people who usually have been in the job for many years and has cut across different administrations over the years. So those are different. So when I said, Dr. Saki, that I agree with Koji when he talks about political appointees, because those people can be fired at the will and pleasure of the president. But those who are elected, like senators and representatives, they have a mandate given to them by the people and not the president. So that's where I was drawing the distinction. So thereby, if somebody is working with another party, even if they're quote unquote still carrying out the president's initiatives, just the appearance, of working with somebody else who has a different ideology than the president, the president don't he can lose confidence in you, you know. So it's nothing wrong with it, and it's not a site of intolerance that the president fires somebody who he doesn't think aligns with his political ideology anymore. So I don't get that logic in terms of us going back to war, or or people being sidelined because they don't agree with the president. The reality is Democrats, for the most part, they appoint Democrats. Republicans, for the most part, they appoint Republicans. Seditions want seditions in their government to carry out the pro-poor agenda. And when Liberty Party come there, they'll bring their own people. So I don't see anything with it. I will leave it at Mr. Gaiman.
Uh,
They,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. Can I
go ahead.
can I
Go
come
ahead,
in?
Doc.
You
Go
see,
ahead,
when
Saki.
when we try to build our governance system on the basis of party alignment, it doesn't support any democratic tenant, and I don't think that's where we are today. Those are the days of the chewing party and the PRC. Those days are over. I don't know why you didn't reference Ellen time. That Ellen didn't look for people who supported her. She brought people from all walks of life, even the very seditians who had different political ideology, but they came and worked to the will and pleasure of Madame Salif. Yes, you can have your political. There's a difference between party politics and the government, functioning of the government. If you can do your core duty as a presidential appointee, you can have your political party affiliation anywhere. Does that matter? Is the man doing his work?
But that's the question. He said,
That's what you should be
the man,
focused on.
the
It's
man
not
said,
about he aligning with
no,
another political party. That
Saki,
shouldn't be the issue.
Dr. Saki,
Because
you
people
have,
should have the freedom to associate.
no,
The
but
same, some of the things
Dr.
that
Saki,
contributed to the war
you are
is
missing
what
the
people are
point.
bringing back.
Dr. Saki, you're missing the point. Let me push back. He said these ministries are known for underperforming over the past 6 years.
That issue of the ministry being underperforming, the statement came as a result of the
No,
ministers'
we
association
no, we have
with
been
an
we
opposition.
have been saying that.
Opposition has been
You,
criticizing these
you
very
know how
people that
many
they're underperforming and
underperforming, you
incompetent.
know how many underperforming ministries
It,
in Liberia right now?
it, does,
Why don't they bring it on the spotlight?
it doesn't matter. We are saying they are all those who are underperforming,
Yeah,
and he
that
is
means all
saying,
of the
and
all of
you
the
are.
ministers and ministers, they're pointing out that are underperforming. Let Jeff
That
Koijee
is not
point them
that is not
out.
it. That is not the point of talking here. But anyhow, we are running out of time. Let's go to
No,
the
but Jerome,
yeah.
one thing,
Mm-hmm.
the statement emanated from the SG of the CDC. This was not the person in charge of civil service, or this was not the president that said these people are underperforming and therefore will be replaced. I totally agree. Anybody underperforming needs to be replaced. There have been cries for replacement all throughout the tenure of this administration. People have been crying for the president to replace certain people. So definitely we agree. If somebody is underperforming, it should be replaced and have somebody proper do it. But this emanated from the Secretary General of the CDC. That means there's something of political undertone. Okay, because what authority did was he speaking from? Was he speaking from being a mayor? No, he doesn't have any jurisdiction over ministers. So he's speaking from being the chairman of the party. And therefore, there's a political implication of this statement, not just performance. Now, performance was mentioned, but because of where it originated, we definitely know there's something political about it. And let's be honest. And if, in other words, if you are supporting another political party, and if you underperforming, you should be replaced. But if you're supporting another political party, we're going to have problems with that. And that's what it means. I mean, I like to call a spade a spade.
Yeah. But let me give you an example. What's going on in my hometown, Grand Bassa County? President Finley decided to endorse the CPP. And what he did was he went and asked all his deputies that he recommended to the CDC government to follow him over to the CPP, to Alexander Cummings wings. And those guys, after they met in a caucus, they came back and did a press release and said, Mr. Westergaard Finley, we want to thank you for the opportunity, but when you brought us to the foreign ministry, we pledge to uphold the Constitution and work for the benefit of our nation. We should not be beholden to one person or to anybody. On that note, we agree to disagree with you. Thanks, but no thanks. We are not going over to the CPP. If we are looking for a job, we have one already. We will rather perform on this job, and if subsequent job arises, we be hired based on our performances, not because our boss that brought us is leaving. That's what we are talking about when we say people with credibility. We talk about honesty. Okay? If I, Jerome Gayman, a Republican, believe in small government, believe in all of these things, when something happens, when these folks were writing their gay bill, those of us who didn't support it had to come out and say, you know what? As much as we support everything that you guys do, this one, by writing a book and curriculum for children, babies, pre-K, that has gone beyond the line, and we can't support this. So you as a man, if you believe that this president is doing something that is antithetical to your belief, your belief system, if this is the antithesis, I would say, ladies and gentlemen, as much as I love the job, I don't believe in this. It's against my nature, it's against my belief, and I will go with my belief system. But not sit there and pretend you underperform, and then when they bring you up to task, you bring the Constitution into being, say, I belong here, even though I'm not doing anything.
But let's say let's use that argument about underperformance. How is underperformance measured? And we have to have a standard to compare it with, so we don't use one standard for one ministry and another standard for one. How is underperformance being measured? Who is taking the measurement, the productivity measure of these places? How?
Okay, now listen to this. You are talking about the Secretary General, the custodian of data, who is accusing these people of underperformance. You have to get the benefit of the doubt in that capacity as the Secretary General of the entire party of the entire country. He has information that you and I will not be privy to. I know you and I have recommended a lot of the shakeup. President Weah does not believe in shakeup. We have talked about it, and we are tired of saying it. But we know
but Mr. Gaiman,
our underperformance.
Mr. Gaiman, when even if you're somebody's underperforming, you have to articulate or you have to detail where is he underperforming? Where is he or she underperforming? You can't just generalize and say you're underperforming. It is not fair to the individual. And number two, it's not fair to the country. If these people are underperforming, they work for us. They work for the people. Even though they were appointed by the president, they're still getting government salaries. We are still paying them. We are their employers. So if they are underperforming, we have the right to know what they were doing wrong. This is our right. The people who have been dismissed from the cabinet or every other places, they tell the reasons for the dismissal. Okay, and if you're talking about underperformance, then you need to cite all those instances of underperformance. You know, if we don't allow ourselves to be clear and transparent, we're giving rise to authoritarianism, where anybody can just say this and it's done.
Mr. Eastman, as much as I disagree, we got 20 minutes here. Let's go to the last piece here.
Okay.
Morris, you take start on here. Last week, we saw Honorable Daniel Chea a few months ago, maybe was it November or so. He was in the graces of Alexander Cummings. They were in Basel. They were everywhere. The Basel Bell. We had Dewey McIntosh. We had Louis Brown, and we had Daniel Chea, and they were going all over the place. All of a sudden, Friday, Daniel Chea is in a major news conference with Thomas Fala, the Minister of Public Works, the Senator for Monserrato County, Sir Joseph, in his yard, and he's having this fabulous news conference, and he's telling the government what they have done for him and the people of that pipeline community, the roads they are building and everything else.
don't give all my analysis away. Just do the questionnaire, because I think you're taking all my analysis. But let
Okay.
me jump in quickly.
Uh-huh.
This is a perfect transition from what we were just talking about, because I think that the two tie in together. You look at the response from the ANC partisans online, how they're insulting Donald Chea, saying that he wasn't fit to even be a part of the CPP, the team Cummings, and all those things, simply from the appearance of some collaboration with the CDC government. So this is the same thing we're talking about. If one party thinks you're supposed to be on the side, and they see you having a lunch or even having some association with the ruling party government, then thereby you must be on the side of the ruling party government. So it's the same thing. It goes both ways. The reality is, I don't even know if Donald Chair is a member of the ANC or even any other constituent party in the CPP. I don't know what his keynote. I know he was an MPP associate, so I'm not sure if he's still with the MPP. But the reality is, Donald Chair said that he's been using his own personal money to build the road in that community. I think he said something like 35,000 in total, and the
Yes.
government had come, to help him, to relieve him of that burden and to help fix the road. So he was just showing his gratitude to the government, which I think is a good thing. And the CPB people started to disassociate themselves with Donald Chia, because they felt like he was crossing carpet by praising the government, for telling the government that they're doing a good job for bringing the roads, and helping him with the roads. So, in that same breath, like I said earlier, if the president feels like somebody is associating with quote unquote his political enemies, you can't trust that person. Even our personal lives. If we have somebody who we don't like, we have a close associate who we see associating with that person, you're gonna be careful on how you talk to your friend now. You're gonna be careful on what you share with them. You no longer have confidence in them to share certain sensitive information with them, because you're afraid they might share it with the other person who you don't like or who you have some rivalry with. And that's the same thing with government. If the president feels like you're going to undermine his government by associating with a political rival, it's his right to fire you. Doesn't mean he's against you and you can't serve in any other capacity within the government. You can go apply for a civil servant job. That's not a presidential appointment, and you can get that job and still work within the government. But you won't be appointed by the president to serve a specific purpose within his government. So I think what the ANC people did to Donald here, in my calculation, I have nothing against it. If they feel like he doesn't serve their best interest, and Team Cummings wants to disassociate with him because they feel like he's associating now with the CDC, that's their right. I won't speak outside on both sides of my mouth. I would say my conviction is, if I'm associating with you and you say you're with me, you shouldn't associate with my opponent. Simple as that. I'll leave it there.
Uh, uh, Mr. Eastman, few years ago, the president was having a rough time the first 2 years, where they were leaking information, you name it, everywhere. Every morning, uh, Costa will have minutes, case notes, staff meetings, confidential meetings in live. We're talking in real time. And he says, we have our people in the government. We know what's going on. We know what's going on. So this is what we are talking about. I'm saying this because 2012, the former Vice President Benedict Warner came to visit me, and he was a keynote speaker here. And one of the things we talked about, he was relaxed, and we were talking, and he said, I asked him, how did he actually feel about the movement in 1978, 79, 80? He said, he said a lot of stuff, but he said one thing that stood out, Jerome. He said, young, my son, he said, one of the worst things that have ever happened to us, he said, Willie called us to an emergency meeting. And as we sat in that meeting, he says he sat in his chair, he looked at me, he said, Benny, there's something going on here. Somebody in this room is a mole. He said, every time we have our cabinet meeting, before we get back from the mansion to our house, Backer Matthew has our minutes. Backup Matthew has our notes. Then he said, Benny would turn around to Jimmy Pierre, say, you know what's going on? He said it went from room to room to room to room. I mean, from chair to chair to chair to chair. He said, among themselves, they knew who it was. He said, we knew who that person was. He says, we knew we were in trouble because we had to mold our secret documents, our secret recording. How do Backup Matthew wind up with our minutes? So I'm saying this to say, you cannot run any organization effectively when you are being undermined from within. This is why when I was young, I used to say, if America wants to help Liberia, if you want to train our engineers, let's train them all in the American system. But don't take some to China, take some to Korea, and you bring them back here and they all doing their thing, different method of doing things, and the whole place is messed up. We have to be on one way. Of course, I think you may agree with me, and I still hold that. You cannot train people from MIT, NJIT, NYU, and then you bring a group of guys from China that went over there and they are giving a lot of scholarship over there. These guys come, total different method of building, architecture, everything is different. So when you see government, when the government says, gentlemen, it has come to the point where everything we plan is leaking. Our confidential materials are in the hands of the opposition. Then, and for one of them to say, well, Mr. Chairman, you accuse me of buying 35 pickup truck. That's a lie. He said, that's a bloody lie. Only bought 7. So, Jimmy, you tell me here, you say you didn't give the opposition 35 pickup trucks. It's a bloody lie. But I only gave 7. And were through the Indian people, not me, but the Indian people. I mean, how can you be this dishonest?
Well, I do agree that for a body to function properly, there must be unison in mind, unison in policy, and unison in ideology. And so I understand where he's coming from with wanting everybody to be headed in the same direction, thinking the same. So I only want to make a point that there has to be where we divide. Where can we agree to disagree? Okay, if we when we bring politics in the matter, and then we bring working for the state, those are two different things. I think people can work together, even if they have different political ideas, but we can still find a way to work together. However, if you have somebody undermining, if anyone is undermining the government's ability to achieve, that is definitely a reason for firing. That is a reason for dismissal. But where should that come from? Is what I'm saying, Jerome. Where should that direction come from? Makes all the difference in the world. I can see a man calling the standard bearer in an office and the secretary general telling say that we need to do this because this person is undermining us. Very good. When they leave from there, it's not the secretary general's duty to go and say that, but it's the standard bearer. Because then when he does it, then it makes it look political. And that's all I'm saying. You know, what are the optics? What does it look like? If it's performance, then fire the man because of performance. But don't let it look political. And that's all I'm saying.
Let me say this, Mr. Gamer. We'll look right here in the United States. You look at Eric Holder, for example, when he was involved with that scandal with the Fast and the Furious. where they're doing the gun running down in Mexico, and those same guns turn back up in the U.S. and was killing Americans in the street. Obama fired him and replaced him with Loretta Lynch. You look at same thing with Donald Trump when he felt like the small man. What is his name from Alabama? You would know him, Mr. Goodman, the former Attorney General, the short guy from Alabama,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was former senator.
former senator. I forgot his name. But when
Mhm.
Trump thought he wasn't in his interest of furthering, what most people thought was his illegal, firing of James Comey and other things, he fired him and he brought Rosenberg, I think Rosenberg or whatever his name was. And when he wasn't, performing to Trump's, whims, he brought in another guy, and then brought in another guy. This guy had, I think, four attorney generals in his time. I think two acting and two, official. So it's the same thing. Every successive government that comes into power, most of the time the cabinet don't stay the same. They bring their own people. The deputies are different people. The secretaries are different people in this country. And again, for whatever reason during their government, if they feel like there's a need for a reshuffle, whether it's based on performance or political realignments, they remove these people from the government and bring in people who they think will best fit and suit their political policy goals for the country. So I don't see anything wrong with that. That's just how politics are. For Liberia, I don't think the president fired every civil servant who didn't agree with the CDC ideology. That's why it's important that, especially in the workplace in this country, you don't share your political ideologies because some people who have biases against certain political parties may be against you because of your political ideology. That's why it's not a good idea when you're working for government or a company to always espouse your political leanings because somebody can use that against you, whether it's a direct supervisor or somebody else. So people who are in the government, whether they align with Unity Party or the ANC, there's no need to really be showing it out on the job because people who are your immediate supervisor may hold that against you. It happens right in this United States, in this more advanced country than we have in Liberia. So it's just politics. I don't see anything wrong with what Koijee said. He doesn't have the power to fire these people. He's only a mayor and a secretary general of a political party. So it's up to the president. If the president starts firing people, then we know that Jefferson Koijee is the one that's making the policy decisions within the party. But the president is not doing it. Jefferson Koijee just made that statement, and nothing has been done since he said it. So I don't think we should read too much into it.
Great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the party, the general secretary of the party is very, very huge. When we are talking about, I think one of the things that Mr. Eastman has always talked about is about bringing professional folks in to do their work where they will be loyal to their profession, that no matter who comes and who goes, they will serve. I think the president did an excellent job by being a community person, by bringing all the people who lost in the election and say, send me 5 professionals from your group, let me hire them. And we heard what Dr. Joseph Boyka did. He sent his 3 sons, a nephew, and another cousin. Those people were hired in the government. So he didn't send them because they were professional. He didn't send them because they were who they were, but because they were Joseph Walker Jr. or whatever. So if there's somebody give you 5 positions, to be honest, and you take all 5 and give it to your relatives, how does that serve as a patriot? Now that you say you're not creating jobs, you're not helping everybody. You took the 5 positions. Everybody that took part in the government, everybody's approaching, gentlemen, you can't let's build this country together. They give you 5 positions. Then all 5 go to one family. But ladies and gentlemen, we are closing. We got 1 minute closing here. We're not reading a comment. Here, I can't do anything because Facebook say I can't do anything from this end. Mr. Eastman, 1 minute, please.
Okay. Politics is going to be full. It's about to go into full blast, full motion, very very soon. Now, it's very important that we remain politically tolerant. That is, we must allow someone to have a different political view without resorting to fighting and other things that will be indignant of our patriotism. We will see it a lot, but we must maintain that Liberia should come first, regardless of what side of the political aisle you fall in. And I like to see, some changes made. I think there's nothing clinically wrong with Koijee saying that those who are underperforming should be moved, but that should be applied to everybody, not only those who appear to be supporting somebody else. Anybody underperforming should be replaced. And we also want to see, down the road, we want to see that this election will be fair and transparent, so that we do not go back to the days where people feel they were disenfranchised through cheating, and that caused other problems. We've gone through this before, and we shouldn't repeat the same error. So we're looking forward to a transparent election, and where we will be tolerant to each other regardless of the political aisle you fall on. And that's my sincerest hope for the incoming months.
Thank you very much. Young man, I know we don't have to call you young man, Mr. Elvis, but you're the youngest man here. Take it out as an endearment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that for allowing me on the platform of great elders. But let me say this. Thank you to Percy. Percy called his name Jeff Sessions. That's the person I was talking about. But the reality is, as we go to elections, right? Uh, Political parties and politics in Liberia is polarized. You know, I would say this: when we had first took office, Mr. Gaiman, what you were saying earlier, they reached out to the ANC, the Cummings, and the ANC people. They flat out rejected WEA. They said they don't want to be tainted by this government if they perform poorly. Thereby, that will reflect on them. People will say they were a part of the government, and they rejected his olive branch to come and work with him. He wanted Cummings to be an advisor to him on financial issues, and Cummings rejected it. So President Weah was only stuck with the people who was around him, who had been with him throughout. No other political party came and showed them and revealed themselves to be of help to the president. They all stood in a little corner waiting for him to fail, and so they can pounce and take over after maybe he doesn't get reelected in these next elections. So it's not George Weah's fault that there are not more quote unquote opposition people in his government. Most of them rejected to work along with him, and a lot of them tend to sabotage his government once they get in there. So it's not about patriotism; it's about political, advantage, trying to gain political advantage for your side while working for the president. I think come October 10, 2023, you know, my sincerest hope is that if there's going to be a change, it's not Joseph Boyka. Let it be Cummings or let it be Gongo. It shouldn't be Joseph Boyka. You know, this election is going to bring a lot of emotions out of a lot of people. It's going to open some old wounds. But the reality is we have to remember we're all Liberians, and we have to show respect, like Mr. Eastman said. We have to show respect to each other, especially on the platforms. I think my emotion kind of got the best of me on certain topics, but next week I'll be more composed and ready to interact with these great gentlemen on the platform. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the end of our show. If it's Sunday 4 o'clock, it's on point. Next Sunday, we're going to have our brother Robert Poker Robert is going to be here, and our great writer and author, journalist, we call him Emmanuel Akshampong. He's going to be here to take us on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And I say Munya all the way, second round. In fact, the next 6 years, it's not even going to be a second round. We are going for one round victory. It's going to be transparent. It's going to be free. It's going to be fair. And we're going to be out here discussing the second term, Joe we account October 11th. Thank you very much, and see you Sunday. As usual, we say.
We all Liberians.